Make love, not CO2 students worldwide demand climate action. Berlin APU. From the South Pacific to the edge of the Arctic Circle, students mobilized by word of mouth and social media are skipping class to protest what they see as the failures by their governments to take tough action against global warming. Friday's rallies were one of the biggest international climate change actions yet, involving hundreds of thousands of students in more than 100 countries around the globe. The coordinated school. Since then, the weekly protests have snowballed from a handful of cities to hundreds, fueled by dramatic headlines about the impact of climate change during the students' lifetime. Scientists have Thunberg, who has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, said at a rally in Stockholm that the world faces an existential end. Across the globe, protests big and small urged politicians to act against climate change while also highlighting local environmental problems. In India's capital of New Delhi, school children protested inaction on climate change and demanded that authorities tackle rising air pollution levels in the country, which often far exceed World Health Organization limits. In Paris, teenagers thronged the cobblestone streets around the domed Pantheon building. Some criticized Raphael de Vater, high school student said it was his first protest. In South Africa's capital, Pretoria, one protester held a sign reading Yule. Thousands marched in rainy Warsaw and other Polish cities to demand a ban on burning coal, a major source of carbon dioxide. Some wore face speakers at the U.S. Capitol in Washington stood behind a banner that said "We." Protests in Madrid and more than 50 other Spanish cities drew thousands. The country is in Berlin, police said as many as 20,000 protesters gathered in a downtown square, waving signs such as March. Carla Riemtsma, a 20-year-old student who helped organize the protest in Berlin, said she's part of about 50 WhatsApp groups devoted to discussing climate change. Azalea Danes, a student at the Bronx High School of Science, wasn't a climate activist until 2 weeks ago when she read about Thunberg's efforts. Now she is one of. That shows how these protests are organized from the bottom up, she said. Volker Quas-Henning, a professor of engineering at Berlin's University of Applied Sciences, said it was easy for politicians to belittle students. But some politicians praised the students. Danish Prime Minister. Scientists have warned for decades that current levels of greenhouse gas emissions are unsustainable, so far with little effect. In 2015, world leaders agreed in Paris to a goal of keeping the Earth's global temperature rise by the end of the century well below 2 degrees Celsius (3.6 degrees Fahrenheit) compared with pre-industrial times. Yet the world has already warmed by 1 degree C since then and is on track for an increase of 4 degrees Celsius, which experts say would have far-reaching consequences for life on the planet. In Germany, environmental groups and experts have criticized government plans to continue using coal and natural gas for decades to come. Quas-Henning, one of more than 23,000 German-speaking scientists to sign a letter of support this week, said Germany should stop using all fossil fuels by 2040. This would give less of this. In Stockholm, Thunberg predicted that students won't let up their climate protests. There.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.